Alright guys, it is now time for week 14 of the 2021 DCFL season. But of course, before we begin, we gotta take a look at the current standings. In the Eastern Conference, of course, Indianapolis Rabbit standings, despite the loss, they have clinched a playoff spot. The Jacksonville Scouts have clinched the spot, with the New York Gangsters in the third spot right now, with Philadelphia behind and Baltimore ahead of Boston with the tiebreaker. And in the Western Conference, Oakland leads with Chicago right behind, and the Tacoma Slashers at the third seed. Kansas City, Seattle right there, and then San Diego last. San Diego could be eliminated if they lose, and a whole bunch of other things happen. And a whole bunch of other teams maybe can clinch. We'll have to wait and see how the week goes. Alright, so now, of course, here we go for the Week 14 schedule. As starts off with my Baltimore Charm visiting the Boston Red Jackets in a big game, too, for potential playoff elimination. And then the Indianapolis Rabbit Stallions visit the Philadelphia Sonics. And then another big one, the New York Gangsters visiting the Jacksonville Scouts. Then down in the Western Conference, matchups we have Tacoma visiting Kansas City in a big matchup. And then Oakland visiting Seattle. And then finally Chicago visiting San Diego. And now for the Week 14 results. Let's start off with my Charm hanging on to beat the Boston team 22-20 in a close game. Went back and forth at the end. As still avoiding a losing record, as Boston now has a losing record. Meanwhile, Indianapolis would spank Philadelphia in a lot closer game than it looked in terms of score, 30-13. And then in an upset, Jacksonville got beaten and spanked by New York 31-20, as they were getting smoked for most of the game. And because of that loss and Indianapolis' win, Indianapolis is guaranteed the #1 spot and the bye, as Jacksonville is stuck as a second seed, which they're locked into, so they're going to host whoever is remaining in the playoffs, which right now would be New York in a rematch 3 weeks later. Then in the Western Conference, the Kansas City Arrowheads completely obliterated the Tacoma Slashers 44-20. It was tied up at halftime, but then Kansas City went off in the third quarter, and they just obliterated afterwards, like 27-3. Easily getting the win there, and big playoff change right there too. Then the Oakland Pillagers lost to the Seattle Tenyo 27-24 in a back-and-forth game, but Seattle got it in the end. And finally, Chicago held on to beat San Diego 21-20, as it was a close game. It went right down to the wire. Chicago got a last-second field goal. San Diego tried to get something, but they were stalled and stopped. Another close game for San Diego, but just can't get the win, as they are officially eliminated from the playoffs. Alright, so now we take a look at the Week 14 results. As Indianapolis, of course, now clinched the #1 spot. Jacksonville stuck at #2. And New York right now is in the playoff race. Baltimore's missing out in the 4th spot, then Philadelphia, and then Boston. And then in the Western Conference, Oakland leads with Chicago right behind with the tiebreaker. And then Kansas City out of nowhere all of a sudden has a playoff spot locked down at the moment with Seattle and Tacoma right behind. Of course, San Diego's eliminated. Alright, so now for playoff clinching scenarios. So for New York, all they have to do is just win their last game at Indianapolis, which is going to be very tough, and then Baltimore and Philadelphia lose, and they'll clinch a playoff spot. Otherwise, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Boston could be eliminated if they lose. Meanwhile, in the Western Conference, all Oakland and Chicago have to do is just win their games, and they're in. And the last spot is going to have to probably wait till the end of the next week to find out. And of course, here is the Week 15 schedule. It's going to start off with the Scouts visiting the Charm. And then the big one, New York visiting Indianapolis. Then it'll be Boston visiting Philadelphia. Then it'll be big one, Kansas City at Oakland. Tacoma at Chicago. And finally, Seattle at San Diego to wrap up the week. Alright, now, with just 2 weeks left, we're getting close to the final. Who is going to make the playoffs? So see you all next time for Week 15.